Awkward silence.
It's okay. It's easy to cut out.
You know, it's not easy to get out of all this whispering.
I bet if we all whispered at one
if
time,
it was careless whispers,
really creepy.
then that's how we're talking.
Can we like all whisper at one time and get
No,
like
we're
some
not
really
doing
creepiness
that.
going
Oh no,
on?
that would be
doing
super
that.
creepy.
See, thank you, Dan.
Let's do it.
Let's do it right now.
Hold on.
And then
Hold on,
we'll
let
do
me
it, and then Ian will lead into the next segment with that.
Wait, how would I do that?
I'm gonna do Jack be nimble. That's what I'm gonna whisper.
Chicken sandwiches.
I guess I'll do it while you're talking. Okay.
Allison, you have to whisper. Then I'll whisper. Apples. Bananas. Pumpkins. Mangoes. Carrots.
Hello and welcome to the GameBrew Podcast, episode 42. I am your host, Ian Pennywise Richard, and I'm joined by Chris Jason Wrights.
Hi, my name's Jason.
I want to kill some teenagers in the woods.
It's the scary Jason.
Oh, I thought I was just a guy named Jason. God.
No.
I was like, that's not his middle name. I don't know.
Dan Xenomorph Rats.
That's pretty good.
That's the noise. And then I had a little mouse that came out of my mouth. So you couldn't see it.
Did you have something? Never mind.
Yeah.
You really should let Tiny Dan out once in a while.
Chest bursting Dan. That's what
He's
they call him.
Will Bruce Shell.
Bruce?
I don't get
Yeah,
Bruce.
like the shark from Jaws, Bruce.
Oh.
Is that what
I was
his
thinking
name
Bruce
was?
Campbell.
I thought his name was Jaws.
Oh,
I thought his name
man.
was Jaws too.
No, his name
man.
No, in Jaws 2, his name is Jaws 2.
Allison. Oh my god. And Allison Carey Van de Vender.
Everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
Oh, man.
Where's all this pig's blood coming
They're all
from?
gonna laugh at you.
Today on the first half of the show,
Could
we'll
just
talk
scream.
about the spooky games we've been playing, and in the second half, we'll discuss whether single-player games are dead or undead. But first, it's time for a beer. Chris, what are we drinking this week?
We're drinking something from New Belgium. We've had a couple from them before. It's their Voodoo Ranger Atomic Pumpkin.
It's a special release.
So special.
And it is.
So special, in fact, that I couldn't find it.
No.
But here's my plan. So it's a Voodoo Ranger, which is readily available, as are pumpkin beers. So what I'm going to do here
Doing some science. Some mad science.
some bad science.
Oh!
So this is half a cup of Voodoo Ranger, and this is a pumpkin beer from Southern Tier. I'm just going to do a little bit of this.
Oh my god. You guys, it's turning green.
Chris, the things you're doing are against the rules of humanity.
There was a little
huge
smoke that
manatees.
came out. Of huge manatees, nice. So yeah, I'm basically drinking the same thing as you now. It's great.
I imagine you ordering that at like the Starbucks drive-thru. Yeah, can I get a half-calf soy grande Voodoo Ranger pumpkin, but I only want 2 pumps of the pumpkin. And can that be sugar-free?
Make it venti.
I'm really excited. I haven't tasted this beer yet, but I'm really excited about it because I really like spicy beers, and it's got habanero in it.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, nice.
It does.
Well,
It's-
I wish I had known that. I'll go grab some peppers and
Yeah, just squeeze some out.
get a little crazy.
Well, it's interesting because you do get a lot of the pumpkin. Like, you get a lot of that, like, pumpkin-y spice in it whenever you drink it.
Yeah.
But it has a really satisfying... And this is what I like about spicy beers. We should do a spicy beers episode because I love spicy beers.
Spicy beers.
Spicy beers! Some spicy boys! But the thing I like most about them is not that it's spicy right away. It's the after effect. Yeah, you know? Like, you drink it and then you're like, ooh.
You're just like,
And it, like,
oh.
Flying Dog had a bunch of really awesome spicy beers during the summer that were really cool.
Yeah, the one that I is my kind of go-to around here is from, probably have never heard of it. It's from Jailbreak.
Nope.
Which is a Maryland brewery, and they do a It's called Welcome to Scoville, and it has jalapenos in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Golden Road, the LA brewery, does a really great beer in the summer called the Spicy Mango Cart, which is like it's a lager with mango in it and like pretty spicy peppers, and it's really, really delicious.
Nice. That's good. But yeah, I like that part of it. It's good. It's a little pumpkin-y for me. That's the only.
I
The one that you're drinking now?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of pumpkin on the nose when you drink the beer. Very smooth, very mellow. And then you get that spice on the back end. I'm not... Well, yeah, I guess I am picking up the cinnamon. It's really nice. I could drink this beer all day in the fall.
I'm probably
I don't-
going to keep drinking it. Yeah.
I don't hate what I made.
So he's the opposite of Dr. Frankenstein.
That's right.
He's not like, what have I done?
He's like, I did okay.
Chris, did you apply for a brewing license before you did all this?
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Well, it's a small batch, so I'm,
Edit it out.
And Allison, what are you imbibing this evening?
I'm really happy because I have mulled wine, so it's
That's-
delicious.
It's funny.
were you
It's,
mulling over what you were going to drink, and that's what you decided?
I did because I drank pumpkin last time.
It's funny you say that it's mulled wine because it looks awfully like the blood of your enemies.
Also, is that not how you guys make mulled wine?
I mean,
Not
traditionally, not usually,
frequently.
but yeah.
It makes it better. You should try it.
So is this a home brew or is this something that you picked up?
Well, this is something that actually my best friend and Casey and I picked up when we were at a local little fair thing, Dayton Days.
I love Dayton Days.
yeah,
Oh my god!
me too.
Shout out to Dayton Days.
But we grabbed it there. They had like samples of it, and it was kind of the best thing I've had in a long time. So we grabbed it for a girls' night, and I snuck some of it for this. She gave me permission, but we're gonna have the rest this weekend.
We won't
Nice.
Yeah,
We won't.
tell. I mean, we're only releasing it
She'll
on the
find out
internet,
later,
but you know.
I guess.
it's fine. Yeah, it's only everywhere. It's
You
okay.
just have to tell her in the next 2 weeks sometime.
Right?
All right, everybody, we've got some seriously freaky games to chat about. So sit back, turn the lights down low, and light a candle made from the tallow of your enemies, and let us take you to Spooktown. Ooh!
I've
It's
never been to
Spooktown's
Spooktown. What's the population?
It's like Funky Town, but
Actually, it's
a
nice.
little different.
Is it like Flavor Town, but with spooks?
One-way ticket to Flavor Town.
So this past week, we've all been playing some of our, well, not some of our favorite, but some new spooky games. Which to me was kind of out of my comfort zone, which is good. So the first
too.
question that I wanted to ask was, do y'all like set the mood when you're playing spooky games?
Oh,
Like, turn
hell
the lights
yeah, I
down?
do.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
100%. So for me, I was playing like late at night. I would have all the lights out in the room, and so it was just me and the monitor. I put my headphones in, so I was like all the sounds were right here, and I feel like that really accentuated everything.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely do the same thing too. I tried to play my game a little bit during the day, and it just was like I pulled the curtains and I got as dark as it just wasn't the same. It didn't have the same effect on me as what I think the developers intended. So I'm only playing my game at night, and it makes all the difference.
See, I have to do exactly the opposite. I like turn all the lights in the apartment on. I make sure I like triple check that the door is bolted and locked,
You
and I also
weenie.
I keep my phone right next to me so that if something does happen, I can just immediately call the police so they can find my body.
See, that's almost more terrifying because whenever it buzzes and something's happening, you go, ah! Oh, God.
So let's talk about what we've been playing. Allison, I'm going to start with you since you're our resident horror. Well, Allison and Dan
our
probably
resident
are.
evil.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you are Resident Evil. Resident.
Well played. So I grabbed a new game. I was gonna play a repeat game, but it was difficult to grab. So I ended
Hey,
up
I've got a
getting-
quick joke for you, real quick. Pete and Repeat were sitting on a boat. Pete fell out. Who was left?
I know this joke. I'm not falling for it. It's
Who's that?
repeat.
Because you're just going to say it again, aren't you?
He's gonna say it again. Yeah, it's repeat. So
Oh yeah,
Say it
Pete
again.
and Repeat were sitting in a boat. It was Pete fell out. Who
Oh
was
my
left?
god.
Get out of here.
Yeah, so I grabbed, it's on Steam, but I grabbed it on PlayStation 4, actually. Game called Detention. After kind of scrolling through everything they had on Spooky Sale, I decided that was the most interesting to me. It's actually a game about like 1960s Taiwan, and it's two students who are trapped in the school. And that was back when Taiwan was under like the military martial law. So the school is controlled by an ex-military person who, because the Republic of China, backstory a little bit, took over there, and he's convinced there are commie spies in the school.
Okay.
And that's kind of the pre-thing you get in the story, but you don't know much else. And then these two students that you play, a guy and a girl, they get trapped in different ways. So the guy falls asleep during class and everyone leaves and he's left by himself, and there's a typhoon warning and he's like, oh, this isn't typhoon season. This is super weird. Where is everyone? So he walks out and he's trying to leave, and he goes through the auditorium and sees this girl sitting on a chair on the stage, passed out. And so he wakes her up, and she's like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what's going on. And they kind of adventure together. And it's honestly, like, it's just a basic 2D side scroller.
Okay.
Okay, that was my question. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, I understand like what you're saying, but I don't know. It's like a jaunty puzzle game.
Yeah, it is kind of like I'm literally just point and clicking items that I need to get through points. I can't leave the school, obviously, and it's taken over by a lot of really interesting and not commonly used ghouls and spooky things from like Chinese and Taiwan culture.
Interesting.
So that's really cool because I'm getting a lot of history lessons on accident.
Is the game, is it subbed or dubbed? Or both?
It's just, it's voiceovered, yeah.
Oh, it's voice. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's smothered and covered. Like my Waffle House hash brown.
Yes, but it's there's mostly text. There's some talking parts, but mostly text. The music is very cool. It's very atmospheric. It's immersive in that way. I'm playing with headphones in a dark area because that's like I do too. And the ghouls make noises. It reminds me of like the Left 4 Dead witches.
yeah.
Yeah. So I get those, like, noise cues that are like, ah, shit, something's close. I don't know where it is. And I don't attack them, is the big thing. The only things I can do is offer them rice, if I have rice. And they can eat it, like an offering, and be like, here, I'm going to sneak by you now, hopefully. Or I have to, like, walk slower and cover my mouth and hope they don't notice me, kind of thing.
Oh my god, that's terrifying.
It is, and I love that. And the art style is pretty cool. It's kind of like cut paper is the best way.
I've seen that. I've seen that on a few.
It's like terrifying Eric Carle. It's like the hungry caterpillar was instead like a zombie.
Yes.
Hungry caterpillar for brains.
Which at first really bothered me because the way that the characters walk is very like wrong. Because it's literally just like the way the joints move are paper-esque, where they're jointed like right at the elbow. And she kind of moonwalks forwards when she walks and stuff. And it bugged me.
You don't?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not rhythmically gifted enough to do those things.
Fantastic dance moves, by the way.
Was that like off-putting to you, or like sort of bumped you out of the experience, or you eventually came to see it as part of the aesthetic?
I actually grabbed it for that reason, because I like interesting art styles. And at first, it really did take me out of it, but the more I played the game, the more I immersed in the story and really got into it. And yeah, it's just lots of puzzles and things. Like, there were really spooky items I had to interact with, like a rotary phone and an 8-track.
So spooky.
For all you kids out there, a rotary phone.
Oh my gosh, technology that isn't touchscreen. Spooky!
Well, yeah, it's really funny because I got
God help you if you
stuck.
get to the last number and mess up.
I got stuck in some part, And I had to look up the part about the phone because I was just lost. I was confused. I couldn't progress.
Because
and
you
so I
didn't
Googled
remember
it.
how to use a rotary phone?
Well, that's the thing. In the PlayStation one, you don't have to actually swirl it. But apparently on the PC one, you have to click and drag it all the way to the end like a real rotary phone. And there are just post after post of children like, oh, I don't understand. It's not dialing. But yeah, so that was interesting. But yeah, I figured out what I was doing wrong and was able to move on. But yeah, it's really, really cool and very spooky.
Did you ever play a game called The Swapper?
I did not. No.
Okay, so
I've heard of
it's more
this.
of like a platforming / puzzle game, but it's got like creepy. I would say it's more atmospheric than it is horror-y, but it's a little horror-y. And everything in it is like claymation looking, so it's like
Interesting.
photographs of real. It almost looks like a really fancy diorama whenever you're playing it. It's super cool.
I'll definitely give that one a go. Yeah, this was actually really horror. Like it's jump scary and just kind of like there are moments where I'm just like, oh, this isn't so bad. But I got to one part where I was like, this is a level of fucked up I did not expect from this game, and it really hit me.
Is it is it like a Japanese production thing or who
Yeah,
is
it's
it?
it's a Japanese studio. It's called Red Candle.
They are. I mean, I noticed that Japanese horror games are typically a little bit more like. Ugh, than a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
the
I mean
ones
like
I've played.
Crimson Butterfly, Fatal Frame, the like those were some of my favorites for that reason. But yeah, it is amazing. I love it. I'm not
SOMA.
There's like 8 chapters and I'm only in 3, so I have quite a ways to go yet, and I'm really going to finish it. I really like it.
Got it. How many spooky pumpkins would you give it?
Oh,
Out
good
of how
question.
many-
Wait, out of
Well,
how many
what's-
spooky
Yeah.
pumpkin? What's like the max spooky pumpkin?
5?
Sure,
I think.
5 out of 5 spooky pumpkins.
No,
give it-
13.
I
Five,
give it a solid 4. Solid 4 spooky pumpkins.
four
There you go.
spooky pumpkins for detention.
On a scale of 5 to Silent Hill for me, it would be 4 spooky pumpkins.
Got it. Fabulous. Dan, what about you, man? What have you been up to?
I played some Until Dawn. I'd never played that before.
Oh, I want to play that so
Yes.
bad.
Real quick, before you talk about the specific game, you also play a lot of horror games.
I play
and
so many spooky games.
And it's a genre that I feel like I don't have a lot of experience with. And so I'm wondering what it is that makes you want to play horror games. Because when I see horror game, I'm like, nope, good, thanks. And you're like, yes.
It's the same reason that some people do kind of like extreme activities.
Yoga.
No, like well, yeah, I mean
catharsis.
yoga. No, I mean that could be,
Like
be a
roller
thing.
coasters.
But like people who like roller coasters, if you like jumping out of airplanes or some shit like that, climbing rocks. I mean, it's like it's the same kind of release that you get, where it's like it makes your adrenaline go. Like there's just something about whenever you're sitting on your couch like playing the game, all of a sudden something like jumps out and spooks you, ooh, and you go, ah! And you're like, oh, this is fun.
I'm a Dan,
no, he's-
adrenaline junkie.
He's right. It's a very cathartic experience.
I feel like that's the same reason a lot of people play things like battle royales,
Yeah.
because it kind of gives that suspense feeling.
Oh my god, I have so many
a different
anxiety
way, though.
attacks in PubG whenever we were used to playing that.
Oh,
That was-
man.
It's terrifying. But yeah, no, I love that. I think, which is interesting because I outrightly avoid like real life scary stuff, but like video games, I love scary video games. I think scary movies are interesting, but they don't have the same effect on me that like actually being involved in it does for me.
Right.
Which is why I played Until Dawn, because that is like the most involved you can be in a like scary video game, in my opinion.
What's the conceit of Until Dawn?
Well, Until Dawn is kind of like a really convoluted Telltale game, but like convoluted in the best way, because basically it has like Emmy winner Rami Malek is in it. What's her face?
Hayden Panettiere.
Hayden Panettiere is in it.
I only
Cool. I didn't
Only
know.
The
know
guy
that
who
because I just
plays
looked it up.
Ford in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is in it. I don't know. You'll know who he is whenever you see him. But like and the whole point of it is that you have there's these 7 characters? 7 or 8. I think it's 8. Characters that go to this cabin in the woods, And
Typical.
the whole
People
Yeah,
need to
I mean,
stop
yeah,
going
right?
to cabins in the woods.
But the whole point is like that you want them all to survive until dawn. Basically, it's like a horror movie, but you get to make all the decisions in it. Yeah, right. That's the name of the game.
Is it possible?
Yes, it is. I failed. Not entirely. So all the characters are like kind of classic scary movie tropes. Like there's the like action hero kind of guy. There's the action hero kind of guy's bitchy ex-girlfriend. There's the sports star guy who's dating the currently bitchy girl. There's like the final girl that you would call her. You know who I'm talking about.
The final.
No, that is a scary movie. Like
I know what you mean,
regulated.
You know that one's gonna last.
Yeah.
Is
and
there
that's Hayden Panettiere?
Who is the first one to die? I'm like afraid to ask.
It
first one to
depends
die?
on what you do.
It depends on what you do wrong. The slutty chick died in mine, unfortunately. Because I was too slow. I was too slow in one thing that I did. It tells you. It makes sure to let you know what you did wrong to make that happen. Yeah.
I actually love that because the appeal of the horror movies that I have seen, I do really like Monday morning quarterbacking all their decisions and being like, never get out of the car, never take a peek out the door, like always check the battery.
Yeah. Always, do that before you leave, you know? But it's really good at that. And there's also like conversation decisions that you can make. It's usually one or two ways. The scariest thing and probably the most nerve-wracking thing in the game is it's on PS4 and it has motion controls involved with it. So
interesting.
Most of them are fairly basic, you know, like, oh, there's a lock, move the thing to the right to undo the lock. Or like you have to open a door, so you move it forward real quick. One of the things is that every once in a while, if you have to not move, you literally can't move when you're holding the controller. So,
which is so unnerving.
It's
so
like
unnerving.
because it's like I've not been moving this whole time, but now that you're telling me not to do it, I'm like, like the one guy, I lost a guy because of that. But you get so tense and it's so good. But this game is fantastic. Like it's not super long. I finished it.
Okay.
I saved everyone but the slutty chick, and I'm very sad about that. Not because it's a slutty chick, but because I wanted to save everybody, and I'm really sad that I couldn't do that. But it's very, like, the story is good. I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to ruin it if you haven't played it, but you should definitely play it if you have a PS4. And yeah, do it. It's great. I love all scary games though, so I think this is great. I'm really jealous of what Will was playing though, because I watched a little bit of that and it made me.
So before we get to that, I wanted to just give Allison a chance to jump in there.
I was just going to say this was fun to play with a friend.
Yeah.
Because we would switch off during certain parts, but then it got really bad because I was playing with my best friend Fee, and I made the worst choices, apparently, because I started killing all the characters off, and we were just trading back and forth.
Don't do that.
It wasn't on purpose.
Sure,
I made bad calls. So he started calling me the Angel of Death, and he would not let me play the guy who's like the quintessential, like, perfect jockey, like,
wouldn't you be Mike?
Hero.
Wouldn't let you be Mike that whole time?
He wouldn't no, he said, Mike is mine. You aren't killing Mike.
Don't kill Mike.
You could be all the others. I'm playing Mike. And I literally almost killed everyone but, like, Hayden Panettiere and, yeah, the blonde guy. I can't think of his name.
Chris.
So,
Chris.
Dan, final point of inquiry on that.
Yeah.
You said it has, like, your stereotypical horror movie characters. Do the scenes follow a lot of those same tropes, or are there still surprises for someone who's familiar with horror genre?
Oh no,
as
it's like,
intimately as what
well,
you might
because
be?
that's kind of the thing about horror, is that whenever the scary things happen, it is surprising. And it's more so, that's kind of where the game, it has some, like, scary parts, and I played it with the lights off. If you saw my Instagram post, I was under a blanket for a lot of it. But the most of the things that happen are kind of like you're walking and then all of a sudden you just hear like a orchestra hit. Oh my God, the music. I didn't talk about the music. The music's so good. Like there's a whole lot of background stuff on it. Like you can watch behind the scenes because they do a lot of motion capture. They did a lot of music interviews and like how they made the story, because it does have so many branching paths. Talks a lot about the butterfly effect in the game, because like one thing you do changes what happens later. And that's another thing that they do, is that if like, you like, say one character hands a character a baseball bat in one scene and you put it somewhere, later in the game, whenever you're doing something, you might see like that flash in the character's mind where like, there's this baseball bat here. And so they pick it, and so they use it to like fend off something.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very well done by the developers. And
I feel like, oh, sorry.
No,
I was going to say, I feel like if I had a group of people to play it with, I could participate in someone else playing this game.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch. No,
Yeah,
it really is.
all the spooks are very like, it's like, and then it scares you. You poop your pants, and then you move on, and be spooked later.
After you get new pants.
Nah,
Or just wear your brown pants.
I mean, I was gonna say, just don't waste the pants. Just you're gonna keep pooping them. So
Yeah, that is one game where I had somebody actually physically throw a controller while they were playing it and hit someone. That was that game because it does make you jump.
That's hilarious. Chris, what have you been up to?
So I was playing Metro Last Light, which I know Dan, when we were choosing games, Dan was like, that's not a scary game.
it's not as well.
I beg to differ. There were a lot of times where I'm like I was getting goosebumps, and it was just like, I think that game is more creepy than scary. But there were definitely moments like I was on edge and was definitely really scared. Not like scared, but like it was intense. And they did a really good job. I think what really did a good job with that was the atmosphere that they created in the game is just very, very dense, and especially wearing headphones. There's like all these little drops and sounds. So like you're like turning around real quick, to see if there's like some creepy monster coming at you or
Spooky.
yeah.
Spooky.
Dan, you were gonna say something?
Well, I said that's why like in my head I concede that as like a thriller. Not like a spooky game, but I guess. But now that you're describing it, it's scary. It's spooky. It's spooky.
Like it's mostly so, and it does also a really good job of kind of going in and out. So sometimes you'll be fighting humans, and that's not really scary because they're on the same playing field as you. Yeah. Other times you're fighting monsters, and you can't see where the monsters are coming from, and you basically just have to go through an area, and you might know that there's going to be monsters, and like sometimes there's not. And you're like, okay.
That's the worst.
And like it's just the way that they do the sound design in that game is just amazing, and it really builds the tenseness of the game.
I really do feel like sound design is one of the critical elements for a really great scary or horror game. Like you have to really have it dialed in to give people the atmosphere that they're looking for.
Absolutely.
Chris, remind me, Metro is a first-person shooter, correct?
It is. And they
How's
do
the shooty
another thing
aspects of it.
It's a solid shooter. Another thing is so your currency is ammo in the game. So instead of money, you have ammo, and you can choose to shoot that ammo, but then that means you'll have less money to spend at shops.
Right.
Wow.
And so that kind of adds into the tenseness. Like you don't want to just be shooting everything all the time. Like you want to try to, use a knife or knock people out.
That's a cool mechanic. I like that.
It is.
Yeah,
Smart.
and then another really good thing that kind of gets you into the game is that you have to wear a gas mask sometimes, like when you go to the surface or like if you're on a fire, and so your gas mask can break. And you also have to change the filters on your gas mask. And you have to, like, if something splashes on your face, you have to wipe off your gas mask.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Yeah,
that's
really
brutal.
cool.
Yeah, so it's
like that.
it really gets you into the game.
Yeah, restricted viewpoints in video games typically is like, that adds another level of that fear, like just not being aware of the stuff that's around you.
Being able to see.
Have you played Alien Isolation at all?
I have not.
Okay, Alien Isolation is a very similar game where you know that there's something that, because it's Alien, you know there's something there, but you don't know where it is, and that's terrifying whenever you're playing it.
Yep.
Which is and another commonality in terms of horror games that I perceive, not having played a lot of them, is also that you have to be really careful with how you make a UI, because anything that takes you out of the experience is necessarily going to make the game less scary. So things like Alien Isolation, where normally where you would have like a mini map, you literally have like a little 1980s like finder, and you have to like pull it up and look at it in front of you and put it back down. And Chris was talking about Metro having the like the wipe your face. I was wondering what the UI is like in that game. Is it pretty obtrusive or no?
It's pretty minimal.
Yeah.
So there's pneumatic weapons that like you can kind of look at how much air you have left, and you have to pump it up every so often, or
Pump it up.
There's not really a map.
Pump.
But like when you hit the map button, you can bring up or the M button, you can bring up a lighter, which can be used. And so it's pretty minimal. It basically gives you resources, and then like you'll have something pop up every so often. Like if you're about to run out of flashlight power, you have to take out this thing and charge it up. And it's kind of like like a grippy charge thing.
That's hilarious.
To all of our listeners, I'm doing a gripping motion.
Just imagine that tonight.
So they do a really good job of making it unobtrusive. And when you start firing your guns, when you would like to see how much ammo you have left, you can't see it. But like it only shows when you reload.
That makes a lot of sense. That's cool. I like that.
I like that a lot.
It's a really good game. It's a game. So I've played 2033. I don't know if I've finished it. But Last Light came out after that.
Okay.
And I mean, they were both really good, really good story-driven games. The atmosphere it's based off of a novel by a Russian author. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But the world he created is really good too.
How many spooky pumpkins?
Oh, I never gave mine spooky pumpkins.
You didn't. We'll come back.
Okay.
Spooky pumpkins. I'll give it 4.5.
4.5 spooky pumpkins.
Solid.
It's a solid. It's a classic.
And Dan, how many spooky pumpkins would you be giving Until Dawn?
I'm gonna give Until Dawn. I'm gonna give it 4 spooky pumpkins, but also a couple spooky ghosts in there too.
What's the ghost
That's a
to
fraction
pumpkin?
we can't math here.
What's the ghost to pumpkin ratio?
The ghosts are they're a free radical, so it's
Yeah, you can't just put it. They're not recognized in the U.S. as currency, so you can't really.
So I played for my spooky game a game called Doki Literature Club,
Which does
wanna
not
play
sound
this so
spooky
much.
at all.
Oh,
Which
unless you really hate reading.
which does not. Which is all about James Joyce is terrifying. No,
I like him.
no, it's so this is a visual novel, and it sort of pretends to be one thing and turns into another. And then at this point, I'm gonna say there are massive spoilers coming. So if you don't want to listen to me talk about Doki, maybe fast
I'm gonna
forward
leave.
3 to 5 minutes. Seriously, if you want to, it's okay. I understand.
No, it's okay. I kind of have a premise, so.
Yeah. So what it does is it basically like tricks you into, doesn't trick you. It sets the stage as if it were just a standard straight up visual novel, and going through there are little hints here and there that things aren't quite as they should be, but the game really does do a good job of lulling you into like the visual novel, like, okay, I'm writing poetry, I'm really enjoying this visual novel literature club, this is great. And then something pops up and you're like, it's not quite right for someone to be thinking about hurting themselves so often. And then it's like, back to Doki Literature Club, Doki. And you're like, for another 15 minutes, it goes back to visual novel land. But it gives you that sort of uncertain, like, I don't know what's going on here, and everything is a little bit creepy because something creepy just happened, but then it immediately went away kind of vibe. I think that's as much as about the plot as I want to say, except to say that it does heavily rely on suicide as like a thing that happens in the story. And as someone who like is going through hard things in my life right now, that was hard. And I'm not sure that they gave that topic necessarily the the weight that it needed behind it, if that makes sense. Like, they used it, but they didn't really put it in context in a way that made me feel good about them using it.
It sounds like this game, if I picking up on the direction you're going, is less horror genre and more like terrifying because it gets in your head and things that we all might think or process at times.
Well, I mean, it's pretty horror. It goes in kind of like
horror.
a horror direction. I would say it's more like it's disturbing more than it's horror. It's not like they're necessarily jump scares, but it definitely wants to get under your skin.
Psychological.
Yeah. There we go. A psychological kind of horror.
Yeah, it's a game again, like kind of like what Allison's was. It's like it's very in like the almost Japanese horror kind of vein, which is really psychological. Sometimes
it
really
is really
gory,
psychological.
but also like it preys more on your psyche than it does on your factor.
So Dan, you've played it.
I watched Game Grumps play it because I don't like visual novels. I like the Game Grumps, and I had heard about this game, so I was like, maybe I'll watch them play that. And that was funny because it was the Game Grumps.
Because it was the Game Grumps.
But also terrifying to watch, but hilarious to watch their reactions to these horrifying things that are happening in this game.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that might just be how suicide is enculturated differently in Japan. Mm-hmm. It's just different in probably ways that I don't understand. So that's just my take on it. I would definitely recommend it if you're someone who likes visual novels and creepiness. I would definitely also recommend that everyone take the warning that they display at the beginning of the game incredibly seriously. And if you're someone who's thought about that or is sensitive or uncomfortable, that maybe this isn't the game for you.
Okay. Is Monica waifu?
No.
Oh, everyone says Monica's waifu.
I think that must be
a joke.
Internet irony. Yes.
Oh, okay. I guess I'll find out. I want to play it really bad. Okay, how many spooky pumpkins?
I would give it. I would give it 3.5 spooky pumpkins. 4.5 if you're into visual novels and scary stuff.
Nice.
Wheel.
So I've been playing SOMA, which I don't know what it stands for yet. So if anybody knows, don't tell me because I don't want to know yet. This is by Frictional Studios, who tends to specialize in sort of the horror genre. They did Amnesia.
Yeah.
Amnesia. How many?
Whichever way you pronounce it, it's fucking scary as shit.
I've had beer. And then before that, they did Penumbra. Mm-hmm. That was a trilogy, I believe. Yep. Maybe 2. I don't remember. But they did that. And they're working on a few new things. But the game is amazing. We talked earlier about sound. Chris and Ian had mentioned that. And this is a game to play. You either go out and buy some amazing surround sound headphones, or you tell your wife or significant other that you have found, you must go buy that Bose surround sound. It is 100% justified.
GameBrew fact hashtag.
So point of. I want to say something here. So I have surround sound in my computer space. And I found that I didn't get into character or like engrossed in the game as much without having the headphones on, because it didn't sound like it was right behind me. Like I needed it to be right here to make it really have an effect.
He's gesticulating.
I was trying to help all the viewers who have been waiting for that Bose sound system.
Oh, right. Still tell your wife or girlfriend that you need that Bose sound system.
Significant other.
I definitely do agree with Chris. There's something for the horror genre about being immersed in the experience. And this is definitely one of those worlds. If you play Dead Space, then you understand what like a breathing, like organic environment feels like. And that is this. There are... Like, it takes place at the bottom of the ocean, and you're in this compound that you just sort of appear in, and you don't understand why, and there's nobody really there, and there's all this weird stuff going on with electricity and machines, and that's sort of the opening thing, and you just sort of figure it out from there. But It's like a breathing world mixed with a mechanic and electronic, electric sounds. And you at all times feel like you feel the pressure of the ocean in the sound. You feel like something,
that's really cool.
You feel the environment organic, even though it's machines that are around you. There are no people around you. It's just, and the sounds, they build in intensity and build, especially with surround sound, and they fade away. And when you finally see something that's been making some of these sounds, it's an awesome moment and feeling in the game. It takes place about 2 hours in.
Very cool. It's a first-person game, correct?
It is a first-person game. I would call it a first-person exploration game at this point. I'm not through it.
Okay.
There's no shooting. There's just sort of exploring, figuring out how to progress from room A to B or from point A to B without dying. There are some mechanics of it that are pretty neat. You can pick up anything and interact with it, kind of like Fallout. And you can throw it, or you can use it in different capacities if it's a usable item. And you can use all that to your advantage if there's stuff around you and you need to cause distractions, or you need to just any various thing like that. And there's sneak elements, and the way you interact with the environment determines what notices that you're there or not.
That's interesting. And does this game has sort of like a weird mode that you can turn on where there's like no death? Is that right? Like you can turn on an invincibility mode in this game?
Well, you can play through the game on easy mode, and it tells you when it's either normal or easy. I just forget what they call easy, but in easy it words it as you don't die. Normal is the normal experience, which I would recommend because you always have that pressure and that uncomfortableness of I can die. You can't just continually run away in a situation. You can die and have to go back to whatever point.
I love that.
Interesting. Under the Sea is a very interesting place.
And it definitely has a more dense feel than what Rapture did in the BioShock series. It's a very condensed, lonely, isolated feeling, whereas I never really felt like that in the BioShock series.
Yeah. You mentioned Dead Space earlier. Will, do you remember whenever we played that in the dark in your apartment?
I think I still have the sheet we wrote down for
the
translating
notebook with
all the alien
rules.
letters. Yeah, it's in the game case.
Oh, yay. That's
the
awesome.
game case? What is the game case?
No, it's the case for the game. Whenever games used to come
I thought
in
he had like
form.
a special, his gaming treasures were in this case.
The gaming memory box.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
Dan
say.
and I
Sorry.
sat for hours, with the blood on the walls, figuring out
we can
the
use
alien alphabet.
We can figure out the alphabet and then say what all the messages mean if we do this whenever it comes out and that. So it was. We had a fun time with that scary.
That was a lot
game.
of fun.
Oh my god, I love that game.
I remember watching YouTube playing Dead Space and then watching until the giant wall alien in the first couple levels bashes out and grabs you by the leg and drags you down the hallway, and then being like, you know what, I'm out. Have fun, guys.
Bye.
Speaking of me being out, I think that is it for our the first
spooky pumpkins. Spooky pumpkins.
Spooky pumpkins.
You're always afraid of something happening, but you still can progress forward. And there's been a few times where I've heard a sound or something in the environment, and I've literally backed into a corner in the room that I was in, and just hidden, which is a really cool thing to feel in a game. But there's something there where I can still progress forward, and I'm never afraid like I have been in some other games. So I would give it probably 4.5 spooky pumpkins.
All right.
Very cool.
All right.
So
looks like we played some good spooky games, I think.
We did.
good
I thought we did.
choices.
We covered a lot of ground here. Well done, everyone. All right, so that's it for the first half of the show. When we come back, we're going to talk about single-player games and if they're dead. So stick with us.
Hey folks, Will here from the GameBrew crew. Thanks so much for listening to the GameBrew podcast. You are awesome. one of our favorite things to do here is to hear from you. It's a great feeling to open up an email or a message and hear what you want us to talk about, or maybe a beer you want us to try out on the podcast. So stop what you're doing and hop on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and you can find us at all of those at The GameBrew. You can also help continue to grow your GameBrew community by dropping us a review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever it is you get your podcasts from. That's one of the best ways for other people to know that the GameBrew is a great place to be and puts out some great and interesting topics to talk about. And if you would still like to financially contribute in a way that actually gets you something out of your money, you can subscribe to Humble Bundle at the link bit.ly/GameBrew. We cannot wait to hear from you and read your reviews. Thanks so much for listening to the GameBrew podcast. Let's head on back to the show.
Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the spooky episode of the GameBrew podcast. How we doing with our pumpkin beer? Chris, how's your pumpkin monstrosity doing?
The Frankenstein pumpkin monster.
Franken beer?
It's going down.
I'm yelling timber.
Down and yeah.
Yep. That was two musical references at once. I hope everyone appreciates that happening. I as I continue to drink it, it continues to get spicier. It's actually reminding me a little bit of like cookies, like Christmas cookies.
Oh,
it's making me really happy.
Cookies for me generally do not get spicier as I eat them.
No, like gingerbread cookies though.
Yeah, like toasted and cinnamony spicier. Yeah.
Yep.
Chris isn't having it. He's not having it.
Chris doesn't ever go full pumpkin.
Oh, you never go full pumpkin.
You never go full pumpkin.
Not like other pumpkins we know.
like David?
Yeah.
David? Any questions?
Oh, man.
God. It's good. I like this beer. I don't like many pumpkin beers, but I think this one's pretty good. I think with that spiciness afterwards, it gives it a little bit more of a flavor profile than just being spiced pumpkin-like.
I generally don't like a lot of pumpkin beers. Also,
it is a fine. It's like a fine line between like just another pumpkin beverage and hey, this is good pumpkin. It's not easy.
Some of that good pump.
Get that good pumpkin. That good pumpkin. How's the mulled wine, Allison?
Delicious. My tummy is happy. I'm warm.
What? Can someone explain to me what mulled wine is? I don't understand.
I was about to ask.
It's
kind of like, have you ever had mulled cider? Have you ever had mulled anything?
I don't know what that means. Just explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
It's for adults, Dan.
Explain it to me like I'm a 21-year-old.
It's wine that's hot with spices.
Yeah, you cook
and
it.
a cinnamon
So...
there.
With spices. Got it. All right. I'm on board.
Yeah. Basically, but it's like very, very fall spices.
Okay.
So it's like nutmeg, cloves, allspice,
leaves,
cinnamon.
You just put some leaves in there.
Yeah,
she just went outside, grabbed some leaves, and threw it in there.
Cardamom and all that, and like orange rind is usually in there, and it's yummy. It's just
it's
so
good.
Warm.
That sounds.
It is good when it's cold.
It was somebody's attempt to make wine better.
Wine is already great. I don't know what you're talking about.
I like wine.
I don't. Wine has connoisseurs. I don't think there's beer connoisseurs. Are there?
Connoisseur. We are beer
Aren't you guys?
connoisseurs.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Isn't that why I'm here? Shit.
No, I don't think there's beer sommeliers.
Oh, true. Okay.
There are.
There are?
They're not called sommeliers, but there are
called?
people who do
They're
the same
called
thing.
beer guys. Let me get this beer guy over here.
It's called the GameBrew podcast. Maybe you've listened to it.
We're that pretentious.
Can you do that on your date tonight? Can you just, when she asks, like, so what do you do for fun? Be like, well, I'm the host of the GameBrew podcast. And when she says,
haven't you heard of us?
What? Like, I said I'm the host of the GameBrew podcast. Maybe
and
you've heard of it.
Walk out.
Your date's going to go really well.
No, don't do that.
Then you can throw some mulled wine and walk away.
Yeah, I'm not planning on that, but I'll let you know if that happens.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Okay, so
Good pep
So I guess we're done with the GameBrew podcast.
All right. Bye, guys.
In the first half of the show, we talked about a lot of really great single-player games. And in the second half, we're going to discuss how EA started a controversy with the closing of the Visceral Games studio, saying that single-player games are dead. So we want to ask the question, are they really dead? In a world where PUBG, Fortnite, and Overwatch rule the market, what place do underperforming, in quotes, single-player games like God of War, Super Mario Odyssey, and Red Dead Redemption 2 have? Are they truly dead, or are they something even more terrifying? The undead!
I see what you did there.
So yeah, what place do single player games have in the market? Actually, let me ask an even more pointed question.
Okay.
Out of the top 10 games this year to last year, so starting August to August, from August 2017 to 2018, how many of those 10 top selling games were single player games? Take a guess. Price is Right rules, ladies and gentlemen.
I'd say half.
Will's going with 5.
3.
3. Allison's got 3.
Chris,
6.
what was the last bid, Bob?
The last bid was 6, Dan.
I'm gonna go $6 and $1.
So 7.
So the only person to not be eliminated by overestimating is Allison, and she was actually pretty dang close. There's 4 on those list of 10 that I would
Fudge.
consider single-player games. So Call of Duty World War II, NBA 2K18, Destiny 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Far Cry 5, Star Wars Battlefront, Madden 18, Assassin's Creed Origins, God of War, and FIFA 18.
Wait,
so most... Yeah,
Star Wars
go ahead.
Battlefront 2 was on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is August to August, so
Okay.
it like doesn't necessarily certain things.
Take it
aren't
up with
included in the
Google.
list. What the other thing that I find really interesting about this, just to sort of like set the stage, is that Fortnite right now is projected to clear $2 billion by the end of 2018 in terms of revenue,
Makes sense.
and it's still an early release. The highest
It's also
grossing
free.
The highest grossing single player game on the list was Super Mario Odyssey, and it only made $670 million.
Well, so the way I think about this a lot is the same way you think about movies. Did anyone see The movie The Room? Anyone see that?
No, but I really want.
Right, because like it won an Oscar, like it won Oscars, and Brie Larson won an Oscar for her performance in it. But it's not a movie that I want to go see to have fun. And that's kind of the same thing that I think like single player games fall into. Like sometimes they're really good games and they're a fun experience to be in, but it's not what's going to make the money. Like you're not going to make a whole lot of money by releasing a really awesome single player game. You're going to make more money releasing a multiplayer game that has DLC that you release every 2 months.
Yeah, or transactions.
Just dim microtransactions, dough.
Well, I think that's kind of it, and I think that's what EA was looking at, is that, the new hot thing are Battle Royale.
New hot.
That's multiplayer.
Old and busted.
So, those games are selling really well right now. Microtransaction games are doing really, really well, and those are all multiplayer games, really. But I think it just, for me at least, never competes with a really solid single player game. Personally, I'm going to love the game more, but they're not going to make up for the money factor. They're never going to make as much money off of selling a game once that's really good single player versus selling these little one-off extra things in these other kinds of multiplayer games.
I think on the one hand, that's true. On the other hand, that also depends on what kind of studio and what kind of game you're releasing. If you're talking about a AAA game and you're saying you're going to make more money selling a AAA multiplayer game with DLC and all that stuff, that's true. But if you're a small studio, you can really make a name and a splash for yourself in the market by creating a really outstanding single player game. I'm thinking of things like Into the Breach, which is by the makers of FTL, or Night in the Woods, things like that, where small studios really put together some amazing small single player games that made it big.
But like, what's big in the grand scheme of things, though? Like, that's the problem, is because making it big as an indie developer isn't billions of dollars.
On a different scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a different scale. So I think what I'm saying is I think the prevalence of large multiplayer games is connected to the prevalence of generally studios getting bigger and wanting to make more money, MOAR money.
More.
And in doing so, they're trending toward making more multiplayer games, but that's not necessarily what the market wants.
Well, and also one thing to think about is like, for a company that has a multiplayer game that they're constantly sending out new content for, they're getting also a constant revenue stream from like Fortnite has a constant revenue stream from having seasonal items that people can buy or different upgrades they can buy. Whereas with a single player game, that's basically the release and then maybe a couple DLCs after that. But that makes it really hard for a studio to have a permanent large amount of staff. Because they're project based instead of like they're building up to one big thing to sell instead of having constant sales, if that makes sense.
So does that mean you're on the side of yes, single player games are dead? EA's right?
No, that was mostly just a point of just making a point and saying like why I think it's more attractive to a developer to have a constant stream of money instead of having one big payday. I honestly, I think prefer single player games, or even just, I mean, you listed Far Cry 5 on that list. I mean,
that
there's
was sort of in the middle.
Yeah, it's kind of in the middle because it has really good multiplayer too. Red Dead Redemption is going to have a multiplayer aspect too, but it's not like they're not multiplayer focused. They just have that added on, which gives it more longevity.
Will, you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, Chris took half of what I was going to say. He's absolutely correct. It's a more It's a more constant revenue stream for them, and the return on investment that you get if you can stretch something out like that and keep dropping little things, whether it's cosmetic items or DLC, just continues to go up and up and up the longer you can stretch it out. I mean, look at WoW. Not that they haven't dropped a lot of money back into continued development, but with the subscriptions, their return on investment on that is probably massively more, definitely massively more than if that were a single player experience with the same amount of DLCs. Because you buy the game and then you keep paying that subscription fee, or, for that multiplayer experience, or for other games, whatever that, extra revenue stream for them might be.
Does that make anyone else feel like these companies are extra heartless compared to what they used to be? Well, that's really the only thing I'm getting out of it.
I mean, they're all businesses.
Yeah, once it became like $1 million industry, then totally.
$1 billion industry.
Excuse me.
Well, and that's one I wanted that's one of the questions I wanted to ask. I feel like one of the things that we get as gamers out of wonderful single player experiences is a coherent, crafted narrative. And in recent years, developers have been working to try to create narratives within massively multiplayer or multiplayer games. And so I'm wondering, and this is a question I actually want to give to Allison, since you do play a lot of WoW, do you feel like multiplayer games are starting to create interesting narratives by themselves, socially or otherwise, and will that ever replace a true single player narrative?
No.
Wow, on both counts.
Boom.
Yeah. So for me, like, WoW is so different from any other multiplayer I've ever played. I've played a lot of different multiplayer games, but I don't stick with them because they are just like pick up, play with friends, put them down. I don't really care about the content of the story. WoW's a little different where it has a lot of lore that I've grown with over so many years and loved, but nothing replaces like the old school Final Fantasy narratives, those single player RPGs that I fell in love with so much from Square Enix overall. They were the ones who just murdered those for me. And I'll never have a multiplayer experience. I haven't yet that kind of compares to that.
Yeah, I agree with Allison. You know, she's right. You have to have nothing's going to replace that narrative for some people. And you know, I'm a big story person, and I want that more than multiplayer. But at the same time, when I'm in the mood for multiplayer, I want that experience, and all the better if I can get that from a game that already has mechanics that I enjoy. It's, you know, it's like going to the grocery store for these developers, or not a grocery store. It's like going to a restaurant for these developers. You can't just cater to carnivores. You've got to have some leafy greens in there. You've got to have some gluten-free stuff. I mean, otherwise you're missing out on a substantial portion of the market. So you've got to have a diverse set of offerings, and that's always going to have to include single players.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting, because I've been playing a lot of Black Ops 4 recently, and they released that without they released that without a single player campaign, which I think was very interesting whenever they did it, because it's kind of the first Call of Duty game to be like, you know what, we understand that not many people play the single player game, so we're just not going to put it in. We're just going to give you zombies, we're going to give you multiplayer, and we're going to give you a battle royale, because that's what you apparently want. Which is
That's so disappointing to me. I loved those single players.
Really?
Yes, I
especially
love
the Black
those.
Ops ones.
I don't
The
think
Black
I've
Ops
ever
ones were
played
good.
through a single player Call of Duty game.
Oh, they were
I
great.
did.
What?
They were so much fun.
Only World at War after that.
I
Really?
did play some of World
Yeah.
at War.
Oh, Black Ops was great. They had great
It
stories.
was so weird.
There-
I liked that.
Yeah, the Black Ops ones, because it actually had a story. It wasn't just, oh hey, look, it's D-Day. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You know.
Go.
You know how that story plays out.
Yeah, you know how it goes.
I mean, that's true.
Is David S. Pumpkins there? Is the question?
I think, yeah, and this is what's interesting about that is that a game that many people went to for the multiplayer decided not to include a single player format. Similarly, Fallout 76 is coming out, and it is a game set in the Fallout universe, published by Bethesda, but it also lacks the sort of single player narrative driven focus of previous Fallout games. And Chris, I'm interested to hear your take on that, whether you're disappointed or whether you wanted more, or whether you think that stories will come of that wasteland based on player interaction.
So I think that, I think it's your last point, where there's going to be narratives that come from, there's going to be narratives there. And I think they're going to be kind of, one of the great things that Bethesda does in their games is that they like to show you things, and then instead of just telling you, by placing a dead body in a certain way, and kind of creating, like, so like you kind of, they kind of give you the gist of what's going on. They'll show you different messages like left on a computer, and you kind of see how that went through that way. Like the story went through that way.
Piecing it together. one
Right.
might say.
Right, and those things, to be clear, are still present
Yes.
in Fallout 76. But it's not. It doesn't seem to me that there's an overarching narrative like there was in previous Fallout games.
Right, and I haven't even the beta's been out for a little bit on Xbox. I haven't been able to play it yet, but from what I've heard, it's not like this is like a multiplayer game like you're playing PUBG or something like that, where you're going to find people. There's only 24 people in a map that's 4 times the size, I think, of Fallout 4. I think that's what they said.
Oh, interesting.
So
Wow.
it's not
Man.
like everyone's jam-packed into one area. So, and I think that's how it should be. Like, the whole concept is the fact that you're going to be the first people out into the wasteland. It should be desolate, you know? I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be... A lot of people that have expressed disappointment in it have been expecting it to be like Fallout New Vegas was to Fallout 3, and it's not that.
Yeah,
It's a
It is
multiplayer
something
Fallout
different.
experience.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think they can get away with that because of this massive backlog and lore and experience that they have in the Fallout franchise. I think it's time for something that breaks that mold and is familiar and accessible for fans who love those games, but is new and fresh and offers up a new way of experiencing those types
That's
of
true.
environments
I
and
agree.
that gameplay.
I
That's
don't
fair.
think it's getting away with it. I think that as long as they execute well, as long as they make a solid multiplayer game with the face of Fallout, I think it's going to do well. And as long as they know, they know what they're good at. And as long as they play to their strengths and learn something from Fallout 76 and make sure that it's the best multiplayer game possible within that world, I think it's going to be a really good game.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, if it wasn't called Fallout, I might not care about this game at all.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's built off their single-player franchise.
I feel so differently. I feel like if it was called something different, I would be more interested in it. I'm personally, I don't want to say worried, because I don't not fall asleep about this at night, but I am a little bit concerned that with Fallout 76 and also the release and continued support of Elder Scrolls Online, that the big Bethesda brands are getting a little bit watered down with like multiplayer stuff, and I would just want more actual numbered Fallout and Elder Scrolls games.
To be fair, Elder Scrolls Online is by ZeniMax, who's within the same umbrella as Bethesda, but is not the same company.
It's true. I'm just saying, like, where's the next Elder Scrolls announcement?
They did that already.
It.
They did that at E3, yeah.
What did they just said?
Yeah,
it's
It was, to be fair, it literally said, like, Elder Scrolls, and there was some rolling
Elder
mountains,
Scrolls 6.
but that's about it.
it didn't even say, like, where the setting was, so...
But
who cares?
That does not pass muster. So another thing that I want to ask was, assuming that VR becomes a thing, which is kind of a big assumption, but assuming that VR does become a thing, do you think that would have an effect on whether those games built for VR are largely multiplayer or largely single player?
Well, I mean, seeing stuff now as it is, there aren't really that many VR multiplayer games, are there?
I mean, they are, but they're very kitschy right now. They're very just like goofy stuff.
And is there even a market for it? I mean, VR is not ubiquitous yet. I mean, it's growing, but
I guess I'm asking the question is, does the VR platform lend itself to a multiplayer experience as we currently envision it? Or is it really more of a device for single player games? And how does that affect whether developers are going to build multiplayer games for it, if at all?
I think that's a big end goal.
Yeah, that's that really long question.
I think honestly, like, everyone wants that. They want the Ready Player One experience, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They want to live in a world that's immersive, and they're in their living room and they have their VR gear on and they're the hero. Along with their friends battling things versus, just a controller. And I think, it'll get there. Do I think it's going to happen in the next year? Oh, no. I think we're pretty stuck with the single player kind of feeling out the VR and what it can do and what people like for the next year at least.
Yeah, and the multiplayer stuff we have is VR chat, where everyone's just Dragon Ball Z characters goofing around with each other.
There's a really funny Kermit video I'll share with you later. Mental note. Anyway.
Another thing that I wanted to ask was just about the people who are consuming video games at this point and thinking
people are consuming video games?
Well,
those are called gamers, Ian. And if you listen to our last
shut up.
But I think there's something to be said for the quote-unquote Fortnite generation that has a certain expectation about what video games are going to be.
Is that a thing? Like, is that like a... Have they declared
like
the Fortnite generation?
Can we call them that? Because I'm for that.
I agree.
This term is copyrighted. If you use it, you need to send me at least 1% of your annual revenue. Okay. I had to think through how that would work.
That was a really quick math that you did there.
No, but I think there is something to be said for this generation of people who are growing up playing Fortnite and who are growing up playing games on mobile platforms, and not just any old game, but basically the biggest game around on mobile platforms, and whether or not the ubiquitous connectivity of games lends itself to any single player gaming at all.
That's a good point. I would really like to see like the breakdown of the audiences who bought a game like God of War or Spider-Man, and like see like, okay, this was they favored more late 20s, early 30s versus like younger high school aged kids. And that would be telling if the Fortnite generation wasn't really buying these things because they weren't online only or online focused.
I think God of War is geared towards a more mature audience for sure. But as Spider-Man, I don't know, because Spider-Man is kind of a popular character. So yeah, that's very hip, right?
Well, yeah,
that's what
but
the kids
also
these days do.
Yeah, but like Spider-Man, still like that game, it's still like geared towards like sitting down and spending time with the game. Like that's kind of the thing that I think a lot of kids these days, because I'm in touch with the zeitgeist of the youth or whatever.
The youths.
Yeah.
The youths.
Damn.
Hey,
youths.
hello, fellow
These
youths.
Youths.
But like,
hello, Will's class.
but I feel like they're, they do too many things. Like kids these days do too many things. So like games like Fortnite and like Black Ops 4 and these games, you can do them quick. Like you can spend an hour with it and then you're done. Whereas with like you spending an hour in God of War or Spider-Man or something like that, it's not going to be a whole lot of stuff that you do.
I mean, forget about an hour though. We're talking about Fortnite. I see kids playing Fortnite on their phones all the time in LA, and it's literally like they pop it open, they'll play for 8 minutes, and then put it away, and it's done. And the Switch, Nintendo has
satisfying
really
to me.
it doesn't seem satisfying to you and I, but we all are the same age group, and the Switch sort of caters to the same kind of games in a similar kind of way, where you can take a bite out of a Switch game and play for 10 or 15 minutes and feel satisfied, and then put it away.
All right, let's put it.
And I just don't.
In the 90s, the only thing I was taking a bite out of was bite out of crime with
Scruff
Chicago, Illinois 60652.
No, Ian's absolutely correct. I mean, I have students who, like, straight A students that I teach who unbelievably, like, it drives me nuts, but they get everything correct. They answer questions. They pay attention to what I'm saying. They perform the things I ask them to. And in between tasks, they pick up their phone and play Fortnite for 90 seconds at a time. And like, it's just, I don't understand.
What are you doing in Fortnite for 90 seconds that you're actually doing anything?
But
building a little house for yourself that no one finds you in.
I would be really interested to have the same conversation 10 to 15 years from now, and for episode 422. And
hello, welcome to the Game Glorp podcast. We where we talk about video games and drink Glorp. Thanks to our Glorp-like overlords.
Praise Glorp.
Praise Glorp.
Praise Glorp.
But I wonder if it's not going to change over the next decade or so because of what this generation of kids are growing up with. We grew up with single player. We still find massive importance in that. How much do they?
That's interesting. I've never thought about that. It's very cool.
Well, that's
right,
what
so-
GameBrew's here for, expanding minds.
That's right, exactly.
Man.
All right, so Allison, single player games, dead, alive, or undead? Alive, dead, or undead?
Okay. I think I'm going to go with undead, because I think they're probably dead, which makes me really sad in a way, because I think companies aren't going to make them because they don't make them money.
Dan.
But I want them.
Oh, sorry. Dan, single player games, alive, dead, or undead?
I'm gonna say like alive, but as like there was a zombie apocalypse and they're the last remaining people that are just normal in the zombie apocalypse.
Would you say that they are the Last of Us?
Oh, it was so
Not to be confused with the book we discovered today.
what was it called?
The Lust of Us.
The Lust of Us.
When you have an accent, things can get weird.
Chris, single player games, alive, dead, or undead?
They're fine because I'm going to keep buying them.
As long as Chris supports it.
Chris is going to single-handedly save the single-player game community.
That's going to be the overlord. It's going to be like, does Chris like it? I don't know.
Well, as long as Chris is happy, then we're good. There's $60.
And CD Projekt Red is the only gaming studio left.
And maybe
Will, single player games, alive, dead, or undead?
Very much alive, and it'll stay that way for a while.
Boom.
until our generation dies.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it is.
I'm going to play Pac-Man till I can't stand up.
What do you think, Ian?
Well, I'm gonna say undead in that right now they're sort of on their heels, but they're going to sneak up on you and infect everybody again. I think narrative is something that is going to be increasingly prevalent in video games because of just the human desire for narrative. And I think that we'll get away from it, the pendulum will swing away from it, and then it'll swing back and we'll want it again.
So we can consume.
Pendulum?
Okay.
Pendulum, it's a D.
No, it makes a J sound.
I thought it was a J
pendulum.
sound.
Pendulum. It's a pendulum.
Ian's giving you the D. He says,
I thought it was Jullum.
Yeah, but giving someone the G.
I gotta go with.
That's a different
Dan on
thing.
this one.
Oh, we're gonna give her the G later.
GameBrew facts.
It's a podcast for kids, everybody. All right.
Podcast for the whole family.
All you cool babies out there. Sorry, I stole that. I took that from the my brother and me. We can't use that.
Copyrighted. But really, though, the Fortnite generation, that's 1%. Fuckers. Pay up.
I believe it's pronounced Fartnite.
They're growing though. I think they're going to be a
They
problem.
are growing. They're getting older every day.
They're going to have
Guys.
cash soon.
Guys, I'd like to point out that we are officially the grumpy old people bitching about the millennials right now.
Whatever, dude. I'm
That is
still in my 20s.
exactly
I'm
what
good.
we are.
I'm not going to be in my 20s for much longer.
You guys are adorable.
I'll be
All right.
32 next month.
That's
Gross.
it for us at the Game Brew podcast before Will and I turn into dust. Say goodnight, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Okay, that was good, guys.
I brought pumpkins, by the way, and
I
no
saw.
one appreciates these pumpkins.
I saw.
You know what?
I'm just trying to set the mood for the recording.
That pumpkin looks like the
I know,
peach
I know.
a butt emoji.